the Dawg RTA from Asmodus. Let's have a look. Hey guys, Vick here, back with another review. Today we are looking at the Dawg RTA from Asmodus and Alex Vapersmd. Alex is a fellow reviewer. I believe he is a Russian man, and yeah, he's a fellow reviewer, and he has designed this RTA with Asmodus. 25mm wide, 3.5mm capacity, dual coil, air coming from underneath the coil, goon tip on top, top fill as well, available in a range of colours, and is on Asmodus's website, which I will link to down below, for about $45. So that seems to be the going rate for this RTA. Let's dive down low, have a little look at this, and then we'll come back up top for pros and cons, of which there are many. See you in a sec. Okay guys, here we are down low with the Dawg RTA from Asmodus. Really cool packaging on this one. Really cool. Don't forget you got that authenticity thing. Do check that. Asmodus does get copied quite a lot. You can see some colour options down here as well. I've got the blue one, but there's a gold, black and stainless one as well. Yeah, cool packaging. It opens up like this. Bosh, and you get your RTA inside here. Let's just have a really quick look at what else is in here too. Asmodus manual. You get spares, you get a couple of nice coils in there as well. Spares, O-rings, all that good stuff, and a spare glass tank there, spare glass piece for your RTA should you break the one you've got. It's the same, it's not bigger, it's not a bubble. Maybe a slight negative, I suppose, that there's no bubble glass in here. You could say that. The capacity is 3.5mm as is, so yeah, we'll mark that down as a tiny negative. But this is the tank. Goon tip on top, other goon tips fit okay. Yeah, so that's okay. You've got your top fill up here as well. Quite a lot of turns on here, not gone in any way particularly inspiring on the top fill, but very effective nonetheless. Just screws on top, loads of room to stick your juice in there. Some people have reported some leaking when filling. We'll talk about that a bit later on. You've got your glass tank, you've got Dawg written on there. I'm hoping very much it's Dawg. Yeah, it's Dawg written on the inside there. And yeah, you can see your barrel in there. You can see it's quite domed, it's quite reduced. It's not crazy big like some of these really airy RTAs are, so you can see a little bit of doming in there. You've got your adjustable airflow. You've got 3 holes on both sides, so 1 hole, 2 holes, 3 holes, and 3 holes there. Very airy with all 3 holes open, make no mistake about that. Let's open her up and we'll see what we got. You've got your domed finish in there, nice finish inside. Build quality as ever, absolutely top notch from Asmodus. Fantastic build quality. Now let's zoom in on here. One thing I will say, and I'll very quickly say this, let's just try and focus a little bit better. There we go. So okay, so one thing I'll say, and I've said this a million times, 3 big holes here, and on this side there is way more air down here than there is up here. 1 hole there, 1 hole there, 3 holes here, 3 holes here. You do the math. On 3 holes it actually starts to feel weird because there's so much more air coming in here than going out here. That's yeah, that's the thing. It starts to feel normal but very airy at around 2, and 1.5 holes seems to be where I like to vape it. But this is the deck anyway. This is the deck. You've got your little grub screws here and here, and here, and you're just dropping it in like several of these RTAs at the moment. You're dropping them in and tightening them up. Coil position I think is key on here. As you can see, I've put it low, really low to the deck, right in the middle but over these air slots. obviously you can't go too low, you don't want to be touching these bits at all in any way, but I wanted it low. I wanted the wick to be just here. And yeah, you don't want to push too close together because then it's bypassing the air, but you don't want it too far out either, because it's even more chance of being leaky and messy. So I think that is the perfect position. In my personal opinion, that is the perfect position. This is the third build now, and honestly tried the others, and yeah, this is what I like. So this is where I've put them in. But a very straightforward deck. Once you've got that position how you like it, very straightforward. Let's wick it up. Basically with the wick, you're just sticking them all down here. It's a tiny bit fiddly, it's a tiny bit of a bend on the cotton, and you don't have too much room to play with in this juice well, but let's do it anyway. Okay, so I've put them in, and now begins the process of trimming these down. You just simply cannot put a lot of cotton in this RDA, and so in both width of cotton and length, so you've really got to play your way into this game quite severely. Let's get some juice in on here. It's one of these, again, another one of these RTAs where I recommend juicing up your wick first. It just makes the cotton easier to play with. You really need to know how this is gonna look in the RTA when wet. So rather than fiddling with the fluffy bits and guessing what it's going to end up looking like, I recommend juicing her up a bit. So let's do that, and then you've kind of got to push it around a corner like this. You want slightly more in. I think the reason that some people have had flooding issues when filling theirs is that they've tried to do this new method of just putting it over the top of the well, and I think it just needs a little bit inside the well. So let's do that. Let's continue with that theory. I think you do need a bit poking in. But yeah, the length, we've got the length right, we've got the thickness right, and that's the most important thing first of all. Make sure that's all clean and tidy in there. I'll show you that again in a sec. Let's just keep going. It does leave you a nice groove to place this cotton in, so you do know you've got it right when you put it together. But as you can see how much easier it is to play with wet. I hope that's helping someone as a tip. But there we go, all 4 strands in place. And I don't know if you can just see on this one in particular, I've had to bend it over quite a bit there to get it in. And again, make sure these areas are nice and clean and clear. There we go. It's not the tidiest job on camera, but if you look, this is how I am wicking it up. So it's not a case of a big blob on top. You're not putting a big blob of cotton on top like you are with some RTAs. You actually do need to feed the cotton properly into the channels, but not deep into here. Don't put it deep down into here. Don't stuff this up like a sub tank. Leave that free and stuff, but fill these gaps, fill these up properly. And I do strongly recommend doing it wet. So there we go. It saves you a job at the end as well, juicing them up. So there we go. Let's put it back together. Put it back together, and then we will fill it up. Let's get rid of this mess. Probably doing some people's heads in with the old CD thing. Right, so nice and tight. Get that airflow how we want it. About there. Just slightly close down 2 sides. I'll just give it a dry and then we'll fill her up and see if it leaks. Let's get this top cap on. Right, juicing her up, using a bit of Nemesis from, is it Dark Star? Yeah, Dark Star Nemesis. It's bang average. It's cheap juice, what do you expect? So we glug some juice in there. Top cap on. And yeah, looking good. Looking good. That is the Dawg RTA. The Dawg RTA. It is juicing up a little bit. There's a little bit of juice coming out. We'll investigate that and we'll talk about that up top. Let's go. Okay, guys, that was the Dawg RTA down low from Asmodus and Alex Vapersmd. So a pretty cool RTA. It's another RTA in this mid wattage bracket, this 35 to 85 watt bracket. Another one of these dual coil RTAs. Lots of pros and cons with this RTA. There's a lot of things I like, and there's several things I don't like about it as well. I've got to be honest. Firstly, so I've seen other people having issues with filling this up, saying it leaks out when you fill it up. When I did it down low, a little bit did come out of the airflow when I filled it up. The second I put it on and vaped it, it was absolutely fine. Hardly any had come out at all. Yeah, for some reason, for whatever reason, never know the science on these things, you are going to get a tiny bit of seepage when you first fill this to the top. It just seems to be the way of it. I think if you put too much cotton in to stop that, you'll have wicking issues further down the line. So yeah, it's one of those where for whatever reason a tiny bit comes out when you fill it. If you underwick this, you might have a big mess on your hands. So I recommend not doing that. Other things I'm not super pumped about. As I showed you down low, the airflow, I think they've miscalculated on the airflow here. You have a ridiculous amount of airflow underneath. You have 3 holes on each side, all that seem to be the size of the intake on the inside. So for me, there's a lot more air at the bottom than there is actually coming through the deck. And with 3 holes open, it does actually create kind of a weird vape. You go down to 2 holes, it starts to feel okay. For me, I've enjoyed it most on 1.5 holes each side. That seems to be where I'm at 66 watts. So the airflow for me could have been better thought out. It doesn't look like they've quite got the maths right on that airflow, and it does create a weird vape when you fully open this tank up. So there is that as well. Wicking on this tank, I think it's quite unique wicking on this tank. So many of this style of tank that come out now, the aim of the game is to place the cotton just on top of the juice flow, and it just sort of feeds it constantly in one big blob on top. I certainly don't recommend doing that with this tank. I think you'll run into all kinds of trouble. You really need to feed it properly into those channels, like that was the way we did it, a year ago for sure. So push, like I did down low, place your cotton neatly into those channels, and don't use too much cotton. You really got to get the length right so that it's not filling the bottom bit, and the thickness right as well. You don't want it too thick because it needs to sit neatly in those channels. So do be super careful on that as well. Wicking is fiddly. Wicking is a bit fiddly on this tank. It's got to go as a bit of a negative, to be honest. It's got to go as a bit of a negative. You're constantly treading that line of it not wicking fast enough versus leaking out when you fill it. So yeah, the wicking is touch fiddly on here. The actual mounting of coils on this deck is fine, but for me, coil position is everything. If you move it too close to the 2 coils, too close to the center, you're completely bypassing that airflow. But if you move them too far out, you're running the risk of getting way too close to the actual juice intakes, the air intakes, sorry, and you don't want to go anywhere near short in this thing. So yeah, for me, coil position is key. Going beyond that, coil position, wicking issues, filling issues, all to one side. The key thing that we talk about with these RTAs is flavour. Now, the flavour is good, but not great. I'm afraid. For me, again, still top of the tree in this category is the Engine V2, and for me personally, the flavour is better on the Engine V2 than this RTA, so this one doesn't take that off top spot, I'm afraid. I still have to strongly recommend the Engine V2. So there we go, so that is that. Final little point on this as well, it would have been nice if this came with a bubble glass. It's already not 2mm TPD, so it would have been nice if it had a bubble glass, maybe taking the capacity up to 5mm. I know a lot of tanks in this category do offer that, so that would have been a nice touch as well. So a very good tank, you know, very well made, very nice tank, but for me it's not a great tank. Few little niggles and issues along the way, and the flavour is just not quite on par with the Nano V2, currently the best in category in my opinion. So there we go, that is the Dawg RTA by Alex, Vapersmd and Asmodus. Let me know what you think in the comments, let me know if you've got one, like and subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you on the next review. Cheers.